Welcome everybody to a special morning tea time edition with Dr. Nneka Tapia. Let's bring Nneka in. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Oh, I love
I
the
hit the
music.
wrong one. Okay. I hope everybody can hear me. I hope everybody can hear me. Okay. Dr. Nneka Tapia. Tapia.
Tapia, Tapia,
Tapia.
like tap
I
dance. Yep.
messed your name up all the
That's
time.
okay. It's okay.
Um,
For the longest time, it was an easy last
and
name.
you're
It
my
was Jones.
cousin, and I messed your name up all the time. And we're going to be talking about the decriminalization of mental illness in the prison system. Now, for those that don't know, let me give you a little introduction, a little background on Nneka. Her credentials are amazing. Um, she served as a fellow, senior fellow with the University of Chicago Institute of Politics. Earned her bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. She has a master in clinical psychology from East Carolina University, a doctorate of psychology from the Virginia Con- Consortium
Consortium. Yep.
program in clinical psychology. Previously served as the first assistant executive director of the Cook County Sheriff's Office and as psychologist of CERMIC,
Cermak.
CERMAC Health Services. Nneka was the first black female warden of Cook County Correctional Facility. That right there.
Actually, Bunky, there was one other black female warden there, but I was the first clinical psychologist to run the jail in the country, actually. There's
Really?
been no other clinical psychologist to be appointed to at least a large jail in this country. And I was the first in 2015.
Wow. It's and you weren't involved in the criminal. You didn't go to school for criminal justice.
No.
None of that crazy. That it's not crazy, but to have that position. Now let me ask you: do you know why? Let me see. I don't have his name. I had his name.
Sheriff Dart.
Yes, why he appointed you? Because you worked in Cook County. You were working there.
Yeah. Before taking on the role of warden, let me see, I had been working at Cook County Jail for about 9 years.
Okay.
And I'll try to be as succinct as possible with the story, but like you said, I went to school for psychology, and as a part of my doctoral degree, I needed to complete an internship, and I knew I wanted to go into correctional mental health. Like that was where my path led me when I was in college, and I said, well, if I'm gonna do this, let me go to one of the largest jails in the country. So I packed up my little country self and moved to Chicago and started my internship there. And there was an experience there in my first week at the jail that I think really shifted the way I thought about my work.
Uh-huh.
So it was, so I was, first of all, I was scared. I mean, I'm working in this large jail and I'm this little
Terrified.
country girl. And I had already had like some fears about police. And so, anyway, I was working on this unit, and it was a unit for men who had severe mental illness. And I'm talking about people who had difficulty taking care of themselves, they had difficulty showering. And it was me and this white officer, an older white officer. And the gentlemen were taking a shower, and I was getting all of the materials ready to start our day. Like we were going to do some activities. And one black man, he was probably in his like early 50s, late 50s. He
Uh-huh.
was taking longer in the shower than the officer wanted.
Uh-huh. Oh.
And the officer got up. I saw him starting to turn red in the face. The officer,
Because he was longer
because
in
he
the
was
shower.
taking a shower. Yes, yes. He stood up, and I said, Officer so and so, it's okay. Like, this is what we want. Like, we
Right.
want him to take a shower. He's taking care of himself. And he said, no. And he went in there, and all I heard was this man's fist hitting this man's body, his wet body. And this Black man was screaming. That was in my first week at Cook County Jail. Talk about trauma.
I'm traumatized just hearing it. I want to cry.
I was stunned. And I froze. I went, so in that week, you know, I had been fortunate enough to meet a couple of people, couple of officers who were working in the unit right beside me.
Okay.
And I didn't know what to do. I'm like, this Black man is sitting here. And so I went over to the other unit and I got the officers. I said, I need your help. And I told them what just happened. Right. And luckily they went over there and they came with compassion. Like, right. They got this gentleman to medical care and they took care of it.
Wait, he hit him that hard, or was it because of?
He hit him that hard. Yeah.
I'm so over this.
And he then wrote his report and handed me the report on the counter and said, here, sign this. Completely different account of what happened. He said this Black man had attacked him. And he's looking at me like standing up with his bra, like this monster really,
right,
and telling me to sign it. I froze again. And I was like, what am I going to do?
Right. Here go the ethical thing.
Yep. This was it. This was the moment that shifted my career. And I'm sorry I'm giving you this long-winded answer for like what.
Because, you know, people need to know that aren't in, I'm never in the, thank God, in a prison. So you only hear stories.
They're saying that your sound is low, Bunky.
It's always low. How's that? The sound. Deanie, how's that? Look, I'm calling her out.
We'll keep talking and maybe they'll hear. But I went to the officers. They said same. Okay. Kiana said same. Okay, Deanie said a little better. This is a family affair right now, everybody.
Right.
So
is that better, Dean?
About the same.
I don't even know. They can hear you. Okay.
Okay.
Right.
So I went to the officers and said, like, what am I supposed to do? I can't sign this report. And they were like, no, you did right. You're not supposed to sign that report. Had those officers not helped me and not helped that Black man in the moment, had they not told me that I shouldn't sign that report.
So the officers told you not to do it?
Yep.
Okay.
Had they not supported me in that moment, I don't know what would have happened in my first week at Cook County. I think I would have left. But they supported me.
Right.
And from there, I knew that I needed to speak up and not be quiet about the things I was seeing. And the sheriff used to hold meetings with a small group of people. It was relatively small, but it was like 75 of us in the room. And I was a lowly chief psychologist at the time. And so I was in the cheap seats. But he would ask about different incidents. And you would hear his executives, who were all in law enforcement, we're talking people with 15, 20 years in law enforcement, say, oh, he's violent. Like, oh, he's this, he's that. And I would raise my hand and say, well, no, Sheriff, there's more to the story. He's upset because your staff have been locking him in a cage for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. He's upset because this man is dealing with significant mental health issues. And so as I started to speak up more, the sheriff realized that he wasn't getting the full story.
Right.
And I think he appreciated that.
Right.
And also it validated for him that he had a serious problem in his jail with the number of people who were coming in with serious mental health issues. And so that's what I think led him to asking me to be on his team and then eventually becoming the warden.
And he made the best decision ever. He really, really did.
I'm
That
going to tell you, Bunky, like when he called me into his office that day, it was the end of April of 2015. And let me tell you, no one gets called into the sheriff's office for anything good. So I was already nervous.
right.
And when he called me in and he said he wanted me to be the warden of the jail, I froze again. Like that was not a celebratory moment for me.
No.
No, not at all. Because I knew that I was then going to be the face of an institution of enslavement. Like I had built the bars. Like I had.
The mic on that right now. That is crazy.
I didn't want it.
Wow.
I told him at the time, I said, thank you. I need to talk it over with my family. And I walked out and my body was cold. I was not going to accept the position. My dad. So, for those who don't know, my dad was incarcerated a few times when I was younger, all for possession of marijuana. We can talk about that later.
Legal.
Which is legal now, and white folks are making a lot of money off of it.
Lots of money.
But my dad was incarcerated, and it was a conversation with him where he told me, he was like, Nneka, I want you to think about if you don't take this. Like, think about the thousands of people, Black people in that institution who can sleep a little bit better with you as the head of that jail. He said, if I had a Black psychologist as the warden of the facility I was in, I would have slept better at night. That was what made me take the job.
Shout out to Uncle Bobby.
RC.
Wow. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have thought, because I don't have a psychologist's mind, so I would not have thought like you did, like you are the face of enslavement. I wouldn't have.
Bunky, you don't have to have a psychologist's mind, because I'm gonna tell you the tools that I used to really make a difference in that jail.
Right.
It wasn't related to psychology. It was related to compassion.
Right. Humanity.
Like, yes.
Yes.
Dignity. It's not normal.
Right.
To see people locked in cages. That's not normal. In this country, we normalize it.
Right.
And I knew, just from my own experiences, the one I shared with you in my first week, there were countless incidents that happened that were on par with that. And I just did not believe that institution could ever be righted. And so I just knew I had to do all I could to make things better.
Right.
But ultimately, that's why we have to shift our society from believing that public safety is about punishment, because it's not. Public safety is about healing. Everybody that is locked in these jails and prisons have had countless experiences of trauma.
Yes, yes.
And our political forces have not invested in healing in Black and brown communities.
No. Like
and they villainize us.
Yes.
Our kids are living in war zones. I'm in Chicago right now.
I couldn't do it.
Our kids are living in war zones. How do we expect for them to survive? And what people, particularly political leaders, don't understand is that trauma changes the way our brains work.
It does. It does.
It really shifts the way that we see people and we see the world. And it's a neurological change.
Yes, it is.
In such a way that people respond to the world out of fear. And when you always have to respond to the world from this position of survive or be killed, you will act in ways that I might not understand.
Right.
That's what we see happening every day. And a jail and a prison is more trauma.
I know when he was a correction officer for a short period of time. He hated it because he was like, "Ma, everybody looks like me," and he was like, "And they should not be there."
Yep.
So, like, it was only a stepping stone for him, but I think it was a good experience because now him being an officer, he's now at the beginning and he knows what the end looks like. And people don't realize the trauma that black people go through, people of
Yep.
color go through. They're quick to say, well, why did they run? Why didn't they just comply? Because, you know, it's it's innate. It's innate. It's like born. It's like in our DNA now, which is terrible to fear law enforcement or people in position. You know, and then when you deal with the mental aspect of it all, which is where you come in with that part, and you're over the jail. Like what? How did you get the officers on board? Because I
Let
know
me
they
say that not all of them
yeah,
got
I
on
know they
board.
fought you. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, they fought hard
yeah.
because they have been trained, many of them from young ages, to see Black people as animals. So it was
Right.
nothing for them to cage us.
Right.
But there were so many of them who, once they were introduced to the humanity of people who were incarcerated, then they could treat them more humanely. And
Right.
so, one thing that I started with was increasing the number of programs for people who were incarcerated. Like, I wanted them to experience hope, and I wanted the staff to see that these were real people who have experienced some horrific things in their lives.
Right.
And the more that the staff heard the stories, the more that they were compelled to treat people with dignity. So
Right.
that helped. I
Yeah.
also wanted the staff to see that they too were traumatized by this system. And so getting them in touch with how this system was negatively impacting them helped them to start healing
Mhm.
so then they could relate to other people with the same dignity that they wanted for themselves.
Now, some of the programs that you put into place, did they actually become like a blueprint for the smaller county jails, or like did people actually utilize the resources that you gave them?
Yeah, so there was one program that I put in place, the Mental Health Transition Center.
Mm-hmm.
A few of the larger jails came to see what we were doing. We had people from New Zealand come, from Scotland, Miami, and New York. And so the transition center was meant to prepare people for release into the community. And it wasn't just about preparing the person for release, it was also about preparing their community to welcome them.
Right.
And one of the things that we did was make sure that everyone leaving there had access to jobs. You know, people need to eat, they need to be able to feed their families.
Right.
And so we had job fairs. We we introduced the men who were in the program to organizations that were willing to hire people who had made mistakes in life.
Right.
But we also focused on their mental wellness.
Right.
And we had daily programs where they centered themselves. We removed them from the toxicity of the main jail
Yeah.
and put them in an area where it was meant to be healing.
Right.
Even though it was still a part of the jail, it was set off to the side and it was a space that we created, we being the staff and the other people who were incarcerated, as sacred.
Now, I was telling you earlier, like, asked you to explain what decriminalization means because, there's some people ignorance that this dude made a comment. He was like, "Yeah, well, let them run around hitting people in the hammer with heads and in the head with hammers, and just, they need to get more death sentence penalties." But that's just somebody who he's ignorant and bored. But that is the mindset of some, and he wasn't a person of color, mind you. So I guess he saw two women of color and just thought that it was okay, because they think it's okay to come out of left field like that. But to me, I kind of felt sorry for him in a way because I'm like, you don't even know what it means. You don't even understand. So let the people know what decriminalization of mental illness means.
Well, first, somebody coming from that perspective,
Right.
he's hurting.
Yeah.
So let's pray for his healing. But to answer your question, decriminalization is an acknowledgement that there are people who have behaviors that occur outside of their control.
Right.
And so we as a society cannot criminalize them for ultimately something we did. So when I say decriminalization, it's about us as a larger society acknowledging that we created the environment that ultimately led to the behaviors that we're seeing. When we don't have significant mental health resources in communities, when we don't have equitable educational opportunities in communities, when we don't have access to jobs that will give people living wages, we are setting people up to do things that are outside of their control.
Right. To survive.
We are setting people up to have to survive.
Yeah.
And we have to acknowledge that we are the criminals in this. We should not expect people to live in such heinous ways. But that's how we expect Black and brown people to live in this country. And so I'm not just talking about decriminalizing mental illness. I'm talking about decriminalizing poverty, decriminalizing trauma, decriminalizing Black people as a whole.
Yes.
This whole legal system that we have right now was built on the criminalization of Blackness.
Right.
We have never been free in this country. And it's time for us to speak openly about that and hold our elected officials accountable for creating communities where we can thrive.
Right. And that goes to making sure, people get out there and vote. Go out
Yes.
there and research the people that you're putting in office. Just don't go by, oh, well, my friend said that this is a good person. Yeah, they're a good person for them. They're fighting for their causes, but what about you?
Yeah.
They're putting people in office and positions that don't even care about the Black and brown community.
Well, they haven't had to.
Right.
They haven't been challenged to.
Nope. Not
But it's
having
people like you that's holding them accountable
Yes.
and saying, no, you're going to be witness for what you are doing, the decisions you are making. Kiana, I see your question in the box. Would I ever consider running for a place in office?
You'd be awesome.
Listen, I'm still healing from my time in government.
Now, how how long have you been away from Cook County Correctional?
3 years.
3 years. And let me ask you, were you a part of Chicago Beyond during that time?
No, so I left Cook County Jail in March of 2018,
Okay.
and then I did the fellowship with the Institute of Politics at University of Chicago. That
Okay.
was a 3 month fellowship.
Okay.
And then I took about a month off to just heal. I thought I could be okay and wash all of that toxicity off of me in a month. No, it's taken more time. But I joined Chicago Beyond in June of 2018.
Okay. Now, a lot of people don't know. Dad knows. Years ago, when my ex was taking the test for corrections and police and all that when we were young, I took the test just to basically just to take it with him, and passed the test, went up for the physical, all that stuff like that. And Dad told me, he was like, "No, you're not built for that." I was like, "What do you mean? I'm not built?" Like I got offended for a minute. Like, what do you mean? He was like, "No, you're not built for that." And my brother-in-law told me also, because he's a social worker in the prison. He was like, "Bunky, no, it'll change who you are." And I
Yes.
didn't understand that, you know, till I heard stories. And now hearing yours, oh my God, yeah, not everybody can do that.
Well, no one should have to do it.
Right. It shouldn't
And
be a
it,
zoo.
no,
That's how it sounds.
no, that's exactly how it is. And no one comes out unscathed.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Now, could you talk a little bit about your current position? You're managing director of the Justice
Initiatives.
Initiative.
Hmm.
What is that?
So I'll tell you about Chicago Beyond first, and then I think it'll make it a little more clear. So we're a philanthropic organization, an impact investor, and we invest in equitable opportunities for our young people,
Mhm.
especially our young Black and Brown people here in Chicago,
Mhm.
specifically on the South and West sides. And we have invested over the years in a number of nonprofit organizations that are really supporting the healing of our young people.
Mhm.
I'm the first person that the organization invested in. And my focus has been on the mental wellness for our young people, understanding that really what we're dealing with is like a trauma to prison pipeline. I wanted to do all that I could on the front end. Yeah, I mean, that's
Yeah.
Bunky. Let me tell you, research will tell you that 99% of the people who are incarcerated have experienced at least one traumatic event in their lifetime. The
Wow.
reality is that they have experienced multiple traumatic events in their lifetime.
I
And
believe
what
that.
it hit me while I was there that what could have happened with this young person
Mhm.
had they had a supportive network when they were younger in community so they didn't have to deal with that pain on their own and act out in various ways.
Right.
And so that's why I wanted to leave the institution, the jail, and focus on the mental wellness of our young people. So one of the things that we did here in Chicago is we worked with the Chicago public school system, which is the third largest school district in the country. And we helped them to create a healing centered framework
Okay.
to establish universal healing supports for every student who is in that school district and every staff member who is in that school district.
That's
Because the
amazing.
adults have to be healthy
Right.
so that they can be a source of support for our young people.
Right. Right.
So that's one thing that we've been able to do. I also created a mental wellness curriculum for our young people. And let me tell you, I wanted to center music in it because that's the way I want to engage with our young people who, especially, aren't used to talking about mental health.
Right.
And I have to tell you this story. So we were working with an alternative high school. I'm not sure what you guys call it in New York, but it's a high school where our young people go when they don't feel fully supported in the regular schools, and they may need like an alternative schedule because they're a parent or they're on the verge of dropping out, and so like this is like their last chance.
Yeah.
um so we're working with this group of young people, and I come in with this curriculum with my 40 something year old self. I'm thinking I got some deep music that's getting ready to have some enlightening conversation. I played the first song. The kids looked at me like, who is this that you're playing, Miss Nneka? I won't say the artist.
Somebody from your childhood? Was it your childhood?
Listen, no, it was an album that had come out like 2 years prior. I thought, okay, it's good. It's a hip hop artist. No, honey, they sent me home and they were like, look, this is who we're listening to. So I downloaded the album of the person they told me they were listening to, Polo G. I had never heard of Polo G.
I don't know who Polo G is.
Well, I'm a fan of Polo G now because of my kids working with them. They were like, Miss Nneka, this is who we're listening to. So I went home and downloaded the album, and I came back the next week and we had a whole curriculum built around Polo G's album, Through the Storm. And the kids loved it. We had some deep conversations about stress and how we respond to stress, good and bad ways. All of the things that are hidden that we don't really talk about in the public forum. And you know, we created a space for our young people where they weren't ashamed to talk about their mental wellness.
That is so great.
That is what we have to do.
Right.
And it doesn't take us being psychologists. It takes us being caring adults to take the time to meet our kids where they are. I could have been closed off and said, I'm not listening to no Polo G. I'm too old for that. But I knew that in order to be in space with them, I needed to be authentic. And we taught them coping skills that they then taught to their peers. It was really about establishing a self-sustaining system where they could share what they learned with other people.
Now, do you see this growing? Are people still using this? Like other areas?
The school where we started it is using it. We wanted to introduce it to the Chicago public school system. And that's what really started the conversations about needing some deeper healing supports. And that's what prompted us to create the Healing Center framework. So this is how God works. We went into a meeting with Chicago Public Schools thinking, hey, we want to give you this curriculum. And they said, well, wait a minute, we need a whole framework to really embed healing within our district. And it ended up being a 1.5 year long partnership where we helped them to think about how to build on the healing supports they had and to create more by engaging with the community around them.
And this is only in Chicago right now, though, isn't it?
It is, but that framework is on the Chicago Public School System website. I know that they are happy to share it with other school districts. And if anyone wants to consider having it introduced in their school system, if they can reach out to me, I'm happy to connect them with the team at Chicago Public Schools so that they can start that conversation.
Now, do you got to be a teacher or something to reach out to you?
No.
I like because I personally feel like this should be in every school. Everybody should have these conversations, and it builds a better person. You know, it helps these young people to become better adults. You know, be able to handle their stressors and learn coping skills and stuff, right? Is that what it does?
Yes, yes.
So
And
that should be
it's
everywhere.
not just a program, it's really a framework
Right.
for what the school district should center for universal healing. So they should have every staff person to receive training on trauma as well as coping. They
East
should
and West.
have,
The
yes,
United States of America thing.
yes, they should have a focus on the culture and environment. Like, how do you feel when you walk into a school? Do our Black and Brown youth see images of themselves
Right.
in positions of power and authority? And do they feel welcome? So those are the types of things in this healing framework that we've been talking about in Chicago. And like I said, I know that the team here at the public school system would be happy to share it with other school districts.
I'm gonna mention this. How far is it gonna get? I don't know. I don't know if I have to start going crazy or what. You know,
Listen, we all start somewhere.
it it's important. You know, the
Yep.
kids need to go to school and see people that look like them that can relate to them. You know, because if I'm sitting in class and the teacher lives on one of the richest streets of the town,
Mhm.
you can't relate to my hunger in class.
Right.
You know,
You won't even acknowledge it.
no, no, that the kid next to me, his parents just finished fighting all night or was shooting up. You can't relate to that.
Hmm.
When they're acting up, you instantly think, oh, well, they're just having behaviors. No,
Yeah.
let me send them out. Let me give them in school suspension or something crazy like that.
Hmm.
So that, yeah, I'll drop that in the supervisor's ear. Just drop it in and
Yeah. It's really meant to decrease the amount of disciplinary action that our young people receive,
right.
as well as decreasing this tendency to like medicalize what's wrong with us. They're also putting our kids on enormous amounts of medication
Yes.
for having very normal behaviors to abnormal situations. And we have to acknowledge the experiences of our young people so that we can stop medicalizing and criminalizing the behaviors that are so natural when they're dealing with the stuff that they shouldn't have to deal with.
Yeah, because they're quick to put somebody on medication.
Yes.
They're quick to prescribe a drug.
Yes.
And it's really something that can be talked about, can be dealt with. If the child or the person was given the attention and the time and understanding that they need.
Yep.
It's all about humanity and compassion. Like, basically, that's have a heart, have a soul.
Yep.
Basically.
And I'm gonna share this, Punky. I so many of us think about trauma as happening to those people over there. Like, it doesn't happen to us. We're good.
Yeah.
And so I talk very openly about how my dad's incarceration, the last one, was traumatizing for me. Mainly because I was in the home when he was arrested and how the police came to my house. And that stands out for me. I don't remember any of the other periods of incarceration. It was that last one.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know that's a scar for me. And so I talk about it so people can understand the trauma that I'm talking about doesn't just come from gun violence.
Right.
Like, it comes from so many different areas.
Right.
But here's what helped me and why I can sit in this conversation with my cousin and talk about what I've been blessed to be able to do. Is because I had a support system.
Right.
I had a family who loved me, my immediate family, but my extended family too. And I'm going to say this, I have not said this before, but I was thinking about this as this conversation was coming up. My Uncle KK, your dad, he was one of those people who was instrumental in my healing. I remember a time when my dad was incarcerated. We had gone to New Jersey, and at this point, my mom was working 2 jobs, struggling, and my Uncle KK took me and my sister shopping, and he brought us the same outfit. It was a California raisin sweatshirt and some
California
jeans.
raisins.
And when I tell you I cherish that sweatshirt, because to me, that was love.
Right.
And that was love he didn't have to give.
Right.
And so it doesn't take a degree, it doesn't take years of schooling to really show up for people.
Right.
It just takes time and compassion. And my Uncle KK did that for me.
Shout out to Dad. Love him so much.
Yes.
He is the best. Um, and when you was talking about trauma, I'm just becoming comfortable with talking about things I've experienced. And they weren't physical. Like that's the thing. They're not physical, but we're taught, what goes on in this house stays in this house.
Oh, yes.
So you carry all of that. And some people, not all, but some people act out differently and their life paths go to the left. You know,
Yeah.
when that person is genuinely a wonderful, loving person, but because of that, what goes on in this house stays in this house. That internal trauma, that they had to grow up with, couldn't speak about, like really messed them up. And people that don't know what they went through or gone through, like question their character and who they are,
Yeah.
and say they're bad people or whatever. No, just have a conversation. Well, first you got to make the person comfortable enough to trust you. You got to build that trust.
Yeah.
That they can understand. Okay, it's safe to talk about your feelings. Like I tell people all the time, it's okay to feel how you feel.
Yes.
Feel your feelings. But because we were taught so long that you can't, and then they end up in prison, and they end up having these horrible encounters with police officers who already, not all, my Roro, not
Not
all
all.
are bullies with badges. They were bullied in school.
Yeah.
Now they have a badge, and that mindset that they have, that they were taught over generations, they can legally do it. Like that's how I see things.
Yeah.
And all officers, and I know so many great officers
Me
in
too.
on the streets and inside the jails. But it's those bad ones that can destroy somebody's life because they're dealing with, the person that they destroy's life is dealing with a trauma that they don't know about, and they're in position to just take their whole life away. Like that's how I, you know.
Yeah. You know, one thing I'll say is about what you mentioned, what happens in this house stays in this house. We don't talk about things outside of the house. I understand why so many of our Black parents and grandparents and our ancestors, why they approached it that way.
Yeah.
It was for survival.
Right. It's for your safety.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you go out there and you show your vulnerability, it will oftentimes be taken advantage of. And so that was their way to protect us.
Right.
So I honor that. But at the same time, I recognize that us as a country, we have never acknowledged Black pain. And Black people have taken that and internalized it in a way that sometimes we don't acknowledge our own pain.
Right.
We think we're superhuman and we can go out and just continue to do and live in this world and get hit with all of these daggers
Right.
and come out unscathed. And we just have to get to a point where our healing becomes so necessary that the risk that vulnerability brings is going to be outweighed by the healing that we know we have to have.
Now let me ask you. This is something totally different a little bit. Like being a doctor, you deal with mental illness and you deal with different traumas and how do you approach? How do you approach? I mean, like you have to build a trust or whatever. But if you have someone who is so guarded, how do you approach breaking down those walls to let them know, I'm here for you, or you have people that are here for you. You're not this bad person that you have in your mind. Like you're not the person you have been living all of these years like a persona. You're not that character. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
These,
You build relationship. You have to be in space with the person
right.
and acknowledge that it is often going to take time. And some people won't come around to opening themselves up to sharing.
Right.
But as long as we continue to hold space for people to have the opportunity when they're ready,
Uh-huh.
the chances are increased that they will open up and share some of the pain that's really at the root of what you're seeing and what you're experiencing. And I oftentimes too will share personal journeys with them on how I'm dealing with my own pain
Mm-hmm.
so that they don't feel like they're in it alone.
Right. And that's important.
Hmm.
That's very important because they'll see somebody like you. They don't know you, right? Oh, she got it all together. She must have was born with a silver spoon in her mouth or whatever. You know, someone like you, like most of my life, seemed unapproachable. Like
Yeah.
I would never have that conversation or any kind of conversation with her because she's on this level. Like you have people, the fear overtakes them. I know I was
Hmm.
always that person. Who would have ever thought that this would be me today?
Yes.
I didn't. You know, um, it's just so important. The work that you do is so needed in our community.
Well, Bunky, it's important what you're doing. I mean, you just talked about how you're overcoming the fear that you've had. Like, you are an illustration of how you are putting your own need for healing and the healing of our community over your fear. That's what we all are required to do when we understand that we have a duty
Yeah,
to be a part of collective healing.
I never thought about it like that. But it was always, to get a voice out there. But when you put it like that, yeah, it's it's okay to be vulnerable
Yes.
and show your vulnerabilities to people because they see that, okay, I'm you're relatable, you know.
Listen, when I started sharing some of the things that have hurt me in my work, in my personal life, other people started to open up. And they
Yeah,
were like, yeah, yeah.
that's how it happens.
And we can build community with each other
Yeah,
and not just be stuck in that pain,
yeah,
but really push each other
yeah,
on this healing journey. Because it is a journey.
yeah. I didn't being your cousin. I'm like so far. You know, some of the things I've learned, I had no idea. I was like, what? They went through that? What? And I look at you guys, Aunt Joyce's kids. I look at you guys, and I'm like, what? They went through that? Looking at where you are.
Yep.
When I say you, I mean you guys collectively.
Yep.
For those that don't know, her sister will be on the 26th, and she's
An assistant district attorney.
assistant DA, and boy, she used to scare me. Like I'm like every time we have a conversation, I feel interrogated. It's but like I look at y'all and cousin Mark, I look at y'all. I'm like, I would have never known that you guys had that traumatic experience happen to you. because Aunt Joyce is just such a strong, she just,
Yep.
and they had high expectations of you guys.
Yes.
They did. Because I remember I got excited once because Kenny got a C. You don't understand. He got a C. I'm like, he's passing. He got a C. Aunt Joyce looked at me with this look, scared me to death. She was like, no, that's not acceptable. Nothing under an A is acceptable. I was like, but he's passing. She was like, no. I said, okay. And that stuck with me. Kenny was a young dude, that he's all over the place. And he got a C, and I was ready to have a party. And she was like, no. It's like, okay.
I didn't feel like there were times when I would bring home grades that were low. It wasn't often, but when I did, like I never felt like it wasn't good enough. Like they always, my mom and my dad, even during my dad's incarceration, they always made us feel loved.
Right.
Like every weekend, my mom would make Sunday dinner on Saturday afternoon, and we would wake up Sunday morning, put it in a picnic basket, and drive to whatever prison where my dad was, and we would have Sunday dinner together.
Oh, wow.
So many people outside of our immediate family would say, that's not normal.
Yeah, because I'm like, that's not
Yeah.
normal, but it was
Yeah.
normal for you.
But it was no, and that's what contributed to my success, because my mom and dad made sure that even when the system tried to break us apart,
Right.
we knew that we were a family.
Right.
My dad was still my dad. I still didn't want to break the rules because I had to look him in the eye and say what I had done. And I wanted to make both of them proud.
Yes.
And it was the love that they had for us that overshadowed all of those experiences that we've had that could have destroyed us.
And that's powerful when you think about it. It's like the system tried to destroy and break your family, but
Yeah.
because y'all unit was so strong, and you had a strong mother and a strong father, even though it's not normal to most people, but they normalized it for you guys. That
Yeah.
at the end of the day, our family is still going to continue to have these dinners, be it in our dining room or at the prison.
Listen, that resonated with me so much that even when I left the jail, it was important for me to go back and partner with the sheriff to change the way families visit with each other at that jail. So most jails across the country, a person visits with their loved one who's incarcerated through a pane glass window. Like you don't get to touch, you talk on the phone or talk through a speaker box, which does nothing for keeping that family unit together.
Right.
And the sheriff has now changed the way visitation happens at Cook County Jail because we presented him with research and we facilitated some pilot visitations at the Chicago Children's Museum, where dads who were incarcerated were able to visit with their children and their families in the museum. Unheard of.
Yeah.
We had the sheriff's office to allow the dads to dress in their plain clothes so that their children didn't have to see them in brown DLC uniforms and handcuffs and shackles, all of the things that traumatize children when they go to visit with their loved one. And we had the staff dressed in plain clothes so that they were not triggering any trauma by showing their weapons and these uniforms that are meant to elicit fear. And through those pilot visitations, his staff that participated, some of the biggest and burliest staff members in this correctional institution, saw that these men who were incarcerated were real people. Like they were fathers.
Right.
They were humans. And there wasn't a dry eye in the room each time the kids ran into the door and got a chance to hug their fathers for the first time. Some of them hadn't hugged their fathers in over a year.
Wow.
One man had never seen his child. The baby was born while he was incarcerated. And so today, they don't have visitation at the jail that happens through a pane glass window anymore. Because of COVID, families can't touch, but at least they get to visit in person. And families get to visit in spaces that will not trigger trauma in the kids.
And that's not for all the inmates, though, right?
Yes, it is.
It's for all of the
For everyone. Because we showed him the importance of
connection.
family connection.
Yeah.
And he and his staff see that that benefits them in a way too. People who have that family connection are less likely to act out.
Right.
So I'm very proud of my experiences as a child,
Yeah.
even as painful as they were,
Right.
being able to now use that as a catalyst for change for our young people.
Yeah.
And I hope that I can continue to do that.
I don't see why you can't. They're like so good at it. You really, really are.
I've just been blessed.
Wow. You're awesome. In case nobody has told you that recently. I mean,
Thank
like
you.
you really are. You're such an inspiration, you know. And for those kids out there in Chicago that have you, they really need to embrace you, you know, because you're like one of them gems, you know, like people don't know exist out there, and you're approachable. That's the thing. You're not, you know, so you're not on a high horse or just think you're. No, you're approachable and
Yeah.
you're relatable and you're like all the things that these young people need, and they are blessed to have you. Well, I'm blessed to have you as a cousin too. You know.
Listen, I feel the love, and as blessed as maybe the kids feel to have me, like my life has been changed because of that.
Right.
Like I get to live their dreams through their eyes. And to me, that is the most beautiful experience. To have a young person who so many people have turned their back on,
Right.
and to see the light turn back on in their eyes, and for them to then transfer that to their friends and their families. Like that is what keeps me going. That is what I know I was sent here to do.
Right. Look, and look at the time. It's almost
And
like
how did an hour go by?
I told you. I was like, it's gonna go by fast before you realize it. You know, before we like wind up, is there anything that you want to say to maybe down the road, because somebody's going to see this again, you know, everybody don't catch live, like any of your students, any of the young people, any moms out there, because you're a mom
Yes,
and
I
a
am.
wife doing all this, so you got that life on, you got a lot going on, you know. But it's
Yeah.
like anything you want to tell the people.
You know, the work is not easy,
Right.
and the rewards don't come quickly, but they come. So no matter what perspective you're bringing, whether you're a mom, a teacher, a psychologist, a community member, we can all do something to support healing within our community. And that has to start with us. Like I start my day with meditation. I start my day with prayer, because I know that if I'm not whole, then how can I give from an empty cup? And so I just challenge all of us to think about how we're centering our own healing, because that is when we can truly show up in remarkable ways for other people. And it doesn't have to be dozens or hundreds of people that we're showing up for.
Right.
One person is all it takes.
And this is coming from a mother of a toddler. A toddler.
Yes.
We're getting ready to end this. Nneka, don't go nowhere yet.
Okay.
I want to thank everybody for joining this.
Yes, thank you. I see all of our family here.
Yeah, it's like a family reunion on here.
I love you guys.
And yeah, for those of you who've never been on before, this is Tea Time with Bunky. Like, follow, subscribe, share. I'm on YouTube and Facebook. So for those that don't have Facebook, I'm on YouTube as well. Um, I appreciate you all so much, and we're going to continue to go about making change. So this is
Yes.
a special Saturday morning, now afternoon edition of Tea Time with Bunky. I thank you and I appreciate and love you all of you guys. I will see
Yes.
you tomorrow. Tomorrow I have a big show. Where's My Brother? It's about a young man who went missing in 1985. He was 19 years old. His sister Stacy Gibbs Colbert will be on. We'll be talking about his case. You know, because somebody knows something. At the end of the day, somebody knows something, and their mom passed away, so it's like in honor of her, Sister Gibbs. Not knowing what happened to her baby boy. She only had two kids, son and a daughter. Marvin was the oldest. He was the oldest. So
Wow.
that's tomorrow at 5 p.m. So you guys tune in and let's have this conversation. So have a wonderful day. Bye bye.
Wonderful day.